walk in the door like this. After I heard like the scream, whatever, I'm like, man,
You heard a scream?
She was stabbed over 40 times. 40 times. That's not just any killing. That's a brutal hate crime.
In this case, I had very little to go on.
Where's the murder weapon? Where's the bad guy? When did this happen?
This case consumed my thoughts. She had no right to have her life taken from her the way she did.
Every murder is a mystery. But a victim's body is a sea of evidence. Every fiber is a clue. Every wound, a piece of the puzzle. The medical examiner holds the key to unlock their stories and catch a killer. This is Secrets of the Morgue.
Olmsted Township, it's a bedroom community. That's the way most people refer to it. We don't have a lot of business in our town. It's mostly residential. And everybody pretty much keeps an eye on everybody else. We respond to calls for service because something looks out of place at a neighbor's house. Everyone looks out for each other.
On a quiet Wednesday afternoon, Detective Scott Sonneborn responds to an unusual emergency.
I get a call from my sergeant, and he says, hey, I think we need you to come in. He tells me that either a body or a mannequin is floating in the pond. When I arrived on scene, the fire department used a long pole just to pull the body towards the shore. This was the first homicide case that I had ever worked. I've never seen anything of this magnitude. And I started as a dispatcher at our agency. Well, then I went to the detective bureau. I really, truly did want to help people. In October of 2012, this homicide happened within 2 months of me being put in the bureau. I was wondering how this body got there, who did it, where's the murder weapon, where's the bad guy, when did this happen?
Sonneborn seals off the area and calls for assistance to carefully remove the body from the water.
Once the body got towards the shore, 2 divers went into the retention pond. They put the body in a bag first, put the body onto the rescue litter, and then the rescue litter was pulled up the incline of the pond.
Lieutenant Matthew Vanyo is also at the scene.
I've been working in law enforcement for 25 years. Since I've been about 10 years old, I wanted to be a police officer. Helping people, plus the excitement that goes along with the job of law enforcement was always enticing and alluring to me.
The detectives examine the body for clues to a crime.
There was some decomposition on the body itself, so that initially told us it was probably there for a little while.
There's no clothing from the waist down. There's just a shirt, a black jacket. I think it's a white male with long hair. You could see ropes around the waist and under the arms. When the body was turned to its side, you could see that these ropes were knotted behind their back.
The scene raises suspicion, and the detectives want an autopsy performed right away. Forensic pathologist Dr. Andrea Weems is assigned to the case.
My patients don't have a voice any longer, and I feel a connection with their life through their death. It allows me to be their voice. Each autopsy is definitely a puzzle. In this case, I had very little to go on. From the scene, I knew that there were some clothes. There were some ropes tied on the patient. One is around the chest, and one is around the abdomen or around the waist. The ropes around the body are not tied to anything. They are not even tied to each other. So my question is, what is their purpose? The clothing that was present on the decedent, there were 3 bras, a Betty Boop t-shirt, and then there were no garments on the legs or bottom half of the body. This decedent had male genitalia, and the bras indicated that this person may be transgender or living as a female.
Dr. Wien's examination uncovers even more sinister pieces to the forensic puzzle.
There are always unanswered questions, and in this particular case, there were injuries clustered around the head and neck and shoulders. These can be characterized as either a stab wound or an incised wound.
It's extremely common for transgender folks to experience violence. This includes ordinary or mundane kinds of violence, like physical abuse, and it can also include more serious kinds of violence, like sexual assault and even murder.
It's a shocking crime for this quiet community. Detectives Sonneborn and Vanyo are determined to identify the victim and catch the killer responsible for her brutal murder.
I can't imagine anybody being punished for just being themselves, and it's sad that some people have to live that way.
This was a pure, unadulterated rage, and we had to find the person who did this.
We are seeing an infestation of crime and murder towards people within the transgender community.
They canvass the neighborhood for clues that could help ID the victim or shed light on this twisted crime.
The property is kind of standalone on the west side of the street. Just to the north of it, there's a larger development that kind of abuts the north side of this property. Across the street from the residence, there are some houses, but they wouldn't really have a view of what was going on.
I canvassed every single house that could have a human eyeball perspective, and I just, put boots on the ground, and I knocked on every single door. So I knocked on like 23, 24, 25 doors. And I would keep looking back to the property, say, okay, how much longer do I got to go?
A forensic unit spends days scouring the property.
There's several acres of trees. There is debris all over of this property. There's a fire pit way, way, way in the back of the property with some car seats sitting around it, like for entertainment. It's kind of almost like a dumping ground.
The search uncovers a promising piece of evidence.
We found a pair of swim trunks. They were overgrown with grass, so they had definitely been there for some time. Our decedent didn't have any pants on. We thought possibly that it was related.
The trunks are sent to Dr. Wien's to try and connect them to the victim.
We don't know the exact cause of death. We couldn't rule out drowning.
Drowning is a diagnosis of exclusion. Basically, you look at it as, why is this person in the water? Is there any other reason for them to be dead?
But Dr. Wien's examination quickly identifies the actual cause of death.
There were at least 40 sharp force injuries identified on this person, mostly centered around the head. There were sharp force injuries along the right shoulder and anterior chest area, and then also on the side of the left chest and right in the middle of the upper abdomen. The x-rays in this case showed that there was an object in the right skull, and it was a flat piece of metal that looked like a knife tip that had broken off. This is the only case that I've ever had with a broken off tip of a sharp weapon embedded in a bone. So it does speak to some degree of intense physical altercation. The manner of death was homicidal violence.
Detectives believe they now have a piece of the murder weapon and want to connect the tip to a blade.
With the stab wounds, of course, I mean, elementary speaking, you're looking for an edge weapon, you know, of some kind. So we went back to the scene and combed the entire area looking for an edge weapon of any kind.
We found a sheath to a knife. There was no knife in it. We found a broken piece of a paring knife, just the plastic portion, the hilt.
There was no forensic evidence on that paring knife that would be indicative of that being the murder weapon at all.
They return to the pond, thinking the killer may have tossed the knife into the murky water.
We tried to get permission to drain the pond because we really wanted to see what else was in there. We were unable to obtain permission from the EPA due to the amount of chemicals that had been in this pond over the years. So we had to deploy sonar. We wanted to see if there was a murder weapon inside this water.
Time was not on our side here. It wasn't like this homicide just occurred within the last couple days. We combed the entire area, but we did not find anything on the property. We never found the murder weapon.
But the search of the pond does recover more evidence that supports the horrific nature of the murder.
There was a yellow nylon rope. Attached to this rope was a cinder block and a piece of a lead pipe. We believe that that was actually bound to the victim to help weigh the victim down.
Investigators are dealing with a cold and calculating killer.
There was a sense of urgency because there was, in our mind, there was a murderer on the streets, so we wanted to get that person off the streets.
This wasn't an ordinary kind of murder. This wasn't something done out of jealousy or as revenge. This seems to be motivated by something deeper and more hateful.
Not only that, the 40 stab wounds, if you think about that, 40, it's so many, it's so violent.
Detectives are working overtime to solve the brutal murder of a transgender woman that has shocked Olmsted Township, Ohio. Hidden in an icy pond, the victim's body provides few clues.
When you discover a body in water, you immediately realize that there is some evidence that you're not going to get. So right away, it's an uphill battle forensically, and scientifically speaking, we're behind the 8 ball. In this case, the identification of the victim, we would not have been able to do that without the medical examiner.
The goal of making physical characteristic measurements and observations is to confirm identity. And in cases of unidentified people, we often don't know the age of the person. We don't know even sometimes the pigmentation of the skin, especially for people who are found in water, because the epidermis will slough off, and so everyone looks pale. Any preserved epidermis can help me determine race. A portion of the face, including the nose and mouth and kind of chin region, was part of the area of the body that retained the skin that was still darkly pigmented. Organs that were very healthy looking, the teeth were in good condition. I give detectives the height, which was 5 feet 11 inches, the weight, which was 142 pounds. Overall, this person looked like someone in their 20s.
But submersion in water has destroyed the fingerprints, one of the easiest ways to make an ID.
This patient had a skin slippage. That skin slippage includes degloving, which is when the thickened skin on the palms of the hands and feet kind of peels off as a glove all at once.
Dr. Wiens can't make an ID, but if she can determine a time of death, it could give detectives a new lead.
You always want a time frame of death, because certain people are in certain places at certain times that they may find out through the investigation that was with the victim, with the decedent, so that's huge.
Rigor mortis, body stiffening, livor mortis, changes in body color, postmortem animal activity. So we look at all of these things. together and try to come up with a range for how long possibly has this person been dead. This person has significant postmortem changes, significant decomposition changes, and it's cold outside still in April. So all of that right there puts this person in the water for a couple of months at least.
Detectives reach out across Cleveland for any missing person reports in the last 5 months.
After we put the media release out, we started getting calls, not only from other police departments, but from other individuals in the transgender community that said, hey, we believe this is CeCe.
They follow up and locate the family of 20-year-old CeCe Dove.
The missing persons report was generated originally by the mother.
The best way to confirm her identity now is through DNA.
We had to get a DNA comparative sample from the mother to compare to the DNA sample from CeCe Dove. So the DNA came back and confirmed that it was CeCe Dove. It never is easy to tell the loved one of somebody who died, let alone somebody who died violently, that their loved one is the one who's been found. It's one of the worst things I think you can do in law enforcement.
Detectives need to learn everything they can about CeCe to track down her killer.
It's so important for a homicide investigation to conduct the victimology. Their whereabouts, where they like to travel, who they hang around with, where they like to go, what their hobbies are, what their interests are. You really have to try to get to know everything you can about the victim.
We learned she's been living as a transgendered woman. She'd always kind of leaned this way in her life, and then she finally came out, would live it openly instead of hiding it. And that was within the last few years of her life.
She was beautiful. She was this young, beautiful kid who just wanted to be herself and wanted to live life to the fullest. And you could see the pride in her eyes as she was coming more and more into her own.
The mother did not approve, but CeCe was still close with some family members.
So many times, folks within the transgender community struggle in relationship with family because often families don't understand. The women in my community try on all these different ways of presenting themselves. I remember that about CeCe, trying to figure out, how she fit into this person named CeCe.
Her family informs detectives that they had seen less of CeCe in recent months.
We found out that she would come and go with regularity at her residence. She would be there for a month and then she'd be gone for a few months. On this occasion, she had left around Christmas time, and they hadn't heard from her up until March of the following year, so that's when they reported her missing.
They also give detectives a new lead.
Our victim posted things on social media looking for dates, dating websites.
And that opens Pandora's box, so to speak, of suspects that you may or may not know or try to ascertain who they are, which was virtually impossible.
With a positive ID, police re-interview neighbors near the crime scene to find out if anyone remembers CeCe. They start with the 911 caller who found her body.
The way that the body was originally discovered, Jeffrey Bland looked out the apartment window and saw what he believed was a body and or a mannequin floating face down. He called his boss, who was an Olmsted Township resident, and said, hey, you gotta come down and take a look at this. I think I see a body in the pond.
But Bland's story raises suspicions.
Most normal people would say, oh my gosh, I think there's a body in the pond. I'm gonna call the police, but no, he didn't do that. He called his boss. I think he wanted to have it confirmed by somebody else. I don't think Jeffrey Bland wanted to come to the attention of the police. Jeff had a couple of warrants for his arrest. He didn't want to get arrested because he knows that if he came in, we were going to identify him and he was going to be arrested and then probably not go home that day.
Jeffrey Bland quickly becomes their prime suspect.
We have to believe that there's a possibility that the caller is the killer.
Detectives have identified murder victim CeCe Dove and a suspect, Jeffrey Bland. Now they need to connect the two in order to make an arrest.
Jeffrey Bland is kind of a frequent flyer with police departments. He did not really want to get directly involved with the police.
So his credibility with us wasn't too strong to begin with.
They return to the crime scene, looking for evidence linking Bland to CeCe, and re-interview neighbors about anything they may have seen as far back as January, when they believe she was murdered.
I knocked on the door. It was a very nice nuclear family, husband, wife, couple kids. I told them, any information that you have, even if it's innocuous to you, may be very, very important to us. The female, very nice lady, she was a nurse, worked a lot of late hours, and she told me that there were taxi cabs that she would see on the property at all times, especially when she'd be coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning.
We started contacting cab companies, and they were great. They got us all of the phone calls, all of the GPS coordinates, everything.
The companies also keep recordings of their dispatch calls. One, on January 5th, captures the detective's attention.
What is your pickup address?
That's in Cleveland. You're gonna go pick them up and drop them off at Olmsted. And how much you think that is?
Okay, that gives me an estimated fare of $59.
Okay, that's fine.
We heard a male's voice requesting a cab to respond to a residence in Cleveland and pick up a female passenger. He requested that female passenger be brought out to the residence in Olmsted Township, where we found the decedent. It turns out that the residence that he dispatched the cab to was our victim's residence.
And I'm like, okay, this is fantastic. So we had a cab, we had a cab number, we had a cab driver, we had the dispatch call, and we had the GPS coordinates.
Detectives think Bland made the call, but he claims he didn't live at the address until the next month.
Jeffrey Bland resided at the apartment mid-February of 2013.
To link him to CeCe, they need to prove the body was put in the pond after he moved in.
There are no specific tests that can be done to this person laying on my table to say they died at 7:05 p.m. yesterday. That's not real. So we try to come up with a range that is within reason for a minimum to a maximum sort of how long possibly has this person been dead.
Dr. Wiens tries to refine the timeline by examining how long the body took to float to the surface.
In order for a body that is submerged to float up to the surface, that is usually a consequence of the time it takes the body to decompose. Once the body is dead, the environment changes inside the body for all the bugs, the microbes that live in your body. And those bugs then just grow, and part of their metabolism process produces gases. Those gases are what cause bloating in decomposition and increases a body's buoyancy and allows it to float. In ambient water, like in a warm lake in the summer, it may only take a couple of days. In a very cold retention pond in January or February that's only 8 feet deep, could take several months.
The winter temperatures mean that the body could have been submerged significantly longer.
The cold and the water both together slow down decomposition. That decomposition process is still happening. It's just happening at a slower pace. And that can mask the time of death. I told detectives this could have been all the way back to December.
Since Bland didn't move in until 2 months later, his alibi could be true.
Jeffrey Bland wasn't even an occupant of the residence at that time for when the body would have been placed there. There was nothing to indicate to us that Jeffrey Bland was our bad guy here.
Detectives have lost a suspect, but gained a promising lead. Someone sent CeCe to that address in a cab.
You're gonna go pick him up and drop him off at Mackenzie Olmsted.
We're very curious about who occupied this residence before Jeffrey did.
When we interviewed Jeffrey Bland in the police department, he said that he subleased the apartment from Jason Quinones. Right then and there, we had to interview the main leasee of the apartment.
Detectives question Quinones and learn he didn't live at the apartment either. He had sublet it to a third man, Andre Bridges.
Jason and Andre had kind of grown up together. They were friends. They had lost contact over a period of time. They reconnected in the summer of 2012, I believe. And Andre at the time was down on his luck, didn't have a place to live. So Jason said, hey, why don't you come stay at my place? I'm living with my girlfriend now, so you can stay there. You just gotta pay me rent.
Quinones tells them a strange story about a cold January day.
He went to go collect rent from Andre Bridges with his associate, Mr. Bill King. Jason is buddies with Bill.
He says that when he went to the property, Andre was standing outside next to a fire pit and he just looked nuts. That was the way he described him. He said he was bleeding from the hand.
Andre said he got jumped by a couple guys in the apartment. One of the guys had a knife and he caught the knife in his hand. And then Jason says, well, I'm gonna go look in the apartment. Andre tries to stop him, says, don't go in there, you're not gonna be happy with what you see. Jason goes up there and sees a lot of blood. Bill's down there standing next to the fire pit and decided to take a photograph from his cell phone of Andre with a bloody hand burning something in that fire pit.
This photograph was able to give us the date and time that it was taken, which was January 5th, and I believe it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
This is the day of what we believe is the murder.
The picture puts all 3 men at the scene at the same time CeCe was killed.
To me, it's shocking to see. I'm looking at a picture of the day of the event. It's shocking.
Detectives in Olmsted Township, Ohio, have 3 suspects in the murder of CeCe Dove, but only one was found with blood on his hands.
Based on the information that the medical examiner had given us about the time of death, that puts Andre Bridges as the sole occupant of this residence at the time this body was put in the pond. We found out that he was on probation for felonious assault against a woman where he fractured her ribs.
When Bridges is brought in for questioning, he can't wait to tell the detectives his story.
All right, you requested to speak to us?
Yeah, I'm just going to tell y'all exactly everything, because
We just want to get down to the bottom of this, dude.
And he says, okay, now I'm going to tell you what really happened. He tells us that the morning of January 5th, he gets home and Bill King is asleep on the couch inside the residence. He says, I want to be with a black girl. You know, can you make that happen? Andre says he throws him his phone and he goes to take a shower. After he gets out of the shower, Bill says, I got somebody coming over. Andre says, okay.
Bridges then claims that he left and heard or saw nothing until he was outside.
What did you see? I want you to go back, and I want you to tell us what you saw when you opened that door.
Can I get up and do it?
Yeah. Pretend that you just came in the door.
Okay, I walked in the door like this. Bam. I open it up. After I heard like the scream, whatever, I'm like, man.
You heard a scream?
Yeah, I did hear the scream. I was outside with the dog, like I said, smoking a cigarette. I opened the door, and when I was walking up though, I heard Jason say, man, that's a dude.
He sees Bill King holding a knife and Jason Quinona standing in the apartment and them saying, it's a dude, it's a dude. At that point, he says he ran away from the residence, and that's the truth.
But as I'm talking, I'm thinking like, man, if I say anything, that's gonna put me there. I don't want to see. That's why I'm telling you, I didn't do it.
Detectives now have multiple versions of CeCe's last day alive, so they go back to the apartment to find out what really happened.
We were on scene. It was extremely windy. The mail had blown out of the mailbox. We picked it up, and we saw the name. It was a Metro Health bill in the name of Andre Bridges.
We opened up the piece of mail after we received the warrant, and it said that he went to Metro General Hospital in Cleveland for lacerations to his right hand.
The bill is dated January 6th, the day after they believe CeCe was killed.
He told the medical staff at Metro Health that he cut his hand on a can of mixed vegetables on the lid.
But detectives aren't buying Bridges' story.
We thought it was highly suspicious, somebody who's going to stab somebody over 40 times. Usually, you could think that it becomes so bloody that the hand then slips off of the handle and then goes on to the blade and then will cut themselves on their hand.
They asked Dr. Weens if the knife wounds on CeCe's body can be connected to the cut on Bridges' hand.
There were injuries clustered around the head and neck and shoulders, with only a single injury on one hand and a single injury on one leg identified. It was a very violent way to die.
The wounds indicate that CeCe's attacker couldn't stop stabbing her.
In cases of overkill, it's not uncommon for the culprit to actually injure themselves, and that's because they've whipped themselves into a fit of rage.
As a consequence of repetitive motion, quick motion, and, once someone starts to bleed, the knife becomes slippery, and so it's not surprising to me that any assailant who uses a knife might sustain an injury on his or her own hand.
It was confirmation that an injury like this would be sustained during a stabbing. It would be reasonable to see on the suspect when committing murder with a knife.
So more and more, once again, the focus of our investigation started to disclose in on Mr. Andre Bridges.
Detectives continue their search for more evidence in order to confirm Bridges' involvement in CeCe's murder.
Going up the stairwell, you could see blood spatter on both sides. It wasn't an exorbitant amount, and if you weren't looking for it, you may not know that it's there. Whoever cleaned it up did a decent job of cleaning it. We found several different ropes within the garage that were similar to the rope that was tied around the decedent.
The blood evidence and ropes are sent to Dr. Weens for analysis.
We need the medical examiner to identify the rope as being the same rope that's tied around our decedent.
Both the ropes that were tied around the body and the separate yellow rope that was tied to the concrete block and the metal pipe were matched to rope that was found in the residence.
Based on the medical examiner's information, we were able to definitively say that was the same rope that was used to tie around our victim.
But detectives still can't prove who tied the rope around CeCe or why.
One could only assume at that point that the suspect, used that rope, cut it, and then tied it around the body, tied it to the cylinder block, and then put the body in the pond.
We believe that the bad guy in this instance was trying to cover up what he had done.
We needed to tie that homicide, that stabbing, to that apartment. But the nexus that we needed to solidify that and support that was we needed some type of DNA and forensic evidence from that apartment that would put our victim in that apartment.
Detectives believe Andre Bridges is responsible for the murder of CeCe Dove, but they still need concrete evidence to make an arrest.
We didn't find anything that would indicate that anybody else was responsible for the homicide and stabbing of CeCe Dove besides Andre Bridges. But, we couldn't prove it.
They asked Dr. Weens to find a forensic link between CeCe and Bridges.
DNA evidence from this location is going to be important to the investigating agency to determine that she was in that house.
There was a massive amount of blood spatter, blood spots that were ascertained and discovered on the stairwell.
Blood that we found on the interior of the residence belonged to Andre Bridges.
Detectives know the murder was intensely violent. They scour every inch of the apartment for a direct connection to CeCe.
A drop of blood was found on the plastic heater.
There was blood that had DNA that matched my decedent from, I believe it was from the bedroom.
Only one spot of blood, but that tied it all in together. That was later confirmed by the medical examiner's office of belonging to CeCe Dove. We could sit there and say a physical altercation occurred in this apartment. Subleased by Andre Bridges.
Detectives are confident that they now know what happened.
I believe that Andre Bridges made an arrangement to meet the victim, CeCe Dove. She had no transportation. So Andre, on the morning of January 5th, makes this phone call to a taxi.
Ready now, or this is for what time?
Right now.
And how many passengers? Just one?
Yeah, just one.
All right, so we'll be there shortly.
CeCe is picked up at her residence in Cleveland. Goes to Olmsted Township. The cab driver sees Andre come out, pay him the money, sees them both walk into the apartment below.
Once inside, something goes terribly wrong.
On this occasion, she was going out on a date like she had done several times before. Things became amorous. And based on Andre's violent nature, his history, just the way he is, he turned into violence. And he stabbed her multiple times. We believe Andre was probably high at the time. I think based on his intoxicated state, it cost her her life.
Yes, she suffered. She had significant sharp force injuries of the neck, which cut her thyroid cartilage and injured major vessels in the neck. If you have 14 stab and incised wounds on your neck and head, and then you get stabbed in the lung, it's only going to make things worse. I can't say how long it took her to die. It could have been minutes, it could have been 30 minutes. It wasn't sudden.
Andre gets the block, takes the body all the way west on the property around the pond, and then dumps the body with the rope tied to the cylinder block around the torso of the body into the pond. And he did it by himself.
It's very unlikely, given the number of injuries that she sustained, that she was alive when she went into the water.
Investigators have all the evidence they need to arrest Andre Bridges for the murder of CeCe Dove.
My favorite part of being a forensic pathologist is going to court and testifying. My job is to relay to the jury what I found, what I saw, what the cause and manner of death were, and be the voice for that decedent.
Pathologists are a huge, vital, important piece of any criminal investigation where forensics are involved. It paints a picture to the jury. It tells a story. And I think the ME's forensic evidence supports, galvanizes, and aids the criminal investigation. And together, you come up with what truly transpired on January 5th of 2013.
At his trial, Bridges is found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison.
We have to change the culture within this country towards transgender individuals, and especially trans women of color. I can't keep losing my sisters.
We were able to put the bad guy in jail. It does not change the fact that there's a family attached to this victim from the start to the end. I will tell you this: Andre Bridges had no support in the crowd, but the victim's family was there every day. That shows me what kind of lives they lived. Andre had nobody in court. Our decedent had love.
I carry a little piece of each of these types of cases with me. This case stuck out in my memory. It still does. It helps me to know that I'm doing something worthwhile when I get to be this person's voice and follow it through into the end for her.